Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5, Cuplaw, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 2, Disengage. And this episode felt a lot shorter than the first episode, although clocks in at 49 minutes if you take off 2 minutes for the previously on and another 4 minutes for the ending credits. I think came out with about 43, 44 minutes of actual content, which is, pretty close to a TNG episode. Unfortunately, any relation to Star Trek The Next Generation pretty much ends there. We start with 2 weeks ago with Jack Crusher was telling us last week about how they got problems with the Fenris Rangers and then Klingons and then whoever else. And so we go back to 2 weeks ago when the Fenris Rangers stop him. It appears to be just Jack on the ship. We don't see Beverly at all. He's trying to, as he says, deliver medical supplies to a colony that's on a planet. Fenris Rangers warp in and say, you're in violation of a treaty. And they board his ship and they start looking through his medical supplies and they find some Romulan ale. And he's like, hey, I'll share my medical supplies. Like, you trying to bribe us? He's like, oh, I would never bribe you with medical supplies. I'd bribe you with this. And he opens a storage box and it's, of course, full of phasers or rifles or whatever. So the Fenris Rangers look at him and he's like, well, listen, these guys, we know the warlords started this disease and they're just trying to kill the people that are in this occupied zone. So I'm going to deliver these weapons. The bad guys are going to use it to shoot at each other and I can get the sick people out and everybody wins. He's like, we're basically doing saints. We're basically saints. And the Fenris Rangers take the bribe because, of course, they would. And, of course, but before that happens, Jack Crusher, this is the new writing of Star Trek. This is Terry Matalas's supreme writing that I've been hearing so much about for these past weeks. The fever is Galarian fever, which is a new fever. It's not something we've heard before on Trek. I looked it up. Galarian fever is fatal at the rate of 1 life per minute. So somehow this fever knows how many people are infected and kills 1 person per minute. Now, if 100 people are infected, I guess that's very bad because you only have 100 minutes to live. If 1 billion people are infected, I guess that's not so bad. You have a very long time to live. It's a disease that kills at the rate of 1 life per minute. That makes absolutely 0 sense. Just saying, if you have a brain, it's very difficult to get past lines that are so fundamentally stupid. But it will not be the last. And God help us, it is not even close to the dumbest lines we will hear in this episode. So as the Fenris Rangers leave the ship, one of them hits their communicator or something and says, reach out to the marked woman. We found him. And he apparently doesn't notice or doesn't hear that this happened. It's like, what the fuck? I just bribed you and now you're telling somebody where to find me? No, none of that happens. The marked woman is, of course, Amanda Plummer, who will be known as Vatic, but we'll get to her. We'll get to her. So after the Fenris Rangers leave, they come back from the 2 weeks ago. They jump to the quote-unquote present day, where you have Riker, Picard, and Jack Crusher on the ship with Beverly in stasis. And they're asking, who's out there. And again, we get the same line we got last week, that it was Fenris Rangers, a day later Klingons, then 3 guys in Starfleet uniforms trying to prime direct him into an early grave. That is the exact line he told us last week. I don't know why they couldn't write a new line, but whatever. So Jack is like, please tell me you've brought help. And Riker says, well, the Titan is gone, but possibly still in range. How would Riker know where the Titan is? Why would he even think it was gone? Okay, because it's not gone. We all know that the Titan's not gone. And in a second, we'll see the Titan is exactly where it was when they left. So, and then we cut to the Titan, and the Titan and the captain's like, doing a scan for activity or whatever. And on the Titan, they're like, oh, we've detected photonic activity, and it's packing. It's full of weapons. But hold up. Nobody seems to question photonic activity. Photonic activity means holograms. Okay? That was the Doctor from Voyager. There were photonic life forms. I am now pretty certain that Vadic, Amanda Plummer, the so-called big bad for the season, is a hologram. Her ship, obviously it's got real people on it too, because she sends them to get killed. Obviously they got 2 people were killed last week by Dr. Crusher, and more will die this week, but I think she herself is a hologram. Or if not, there's a hologram in use. Maybe Moriarty's on that ship, but whatever. Photonic activity, they say it and then they seem to forget about it. So then we're back on the Ilios. Riker, Picard, and Jack, they need to get Beverly stasis pod into the shuttle. So why not just go to the shuttle and beam her in? We know shuttles have transporters. No, they don't do that. Jack decides he's going to let the 2 old men figure out some way of getting what looks to be an incredibly heavy stasis pod into the shuttle. He goes off to do some stuff. And then the ship is out there, and the Vadic ship, they have no way of contacting them. The communications are down. They can't contact the Titan. They can't contact Vadic ship. So Vadic's ship shoots 3 photon torpedoes at the Ilios. And you think, well, shit, the Ilios has got no shields. It's down. It's gone. I mean, clearly the series is over. Vadic kills Picard, kills Riker, kills Jack Crusher, kills Dr. Crusher, and destroys the ship. And the Titan will just notice, oh, big explosion and go home. That's the end of the series, right? No. 3 photon torpedoes from a highly weaponized alien spacecraft. And the only thing that damages is the shuttle attached to the ship. The shuttle is docked next to the bridge. How 3 photon torpedoes could destroy an unarmed, and they make a point to say it's an unarmed shuttlecraft. And that's basically the only damage. Ridiculous. Anyway, after the shuttlecraft explodes, we go back to Rafi, who is, I don't like her. I don't like her. She's watching the news. She's watching the Federation's version of CNN. She at least knows she can't trust the news. Anyway, they're doing the news story only 117 people died in that building. They have video, of course, of the building being portalized into itself, and only 117 people are dead. But of course, they're not saying only 117. And the Federation is blaming some guy called Toluco. It keeps reminding me of Tuco from the much better show Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. But okay, Toluco is some mid-level Romulan dissident, and they claim from a breakaway. So they're blaming it on the Romulans and Toluco, and Rafi isn't having it. She's like, there's no way Toluco is responsible. She's calling her handler again, and Rafi's like, you brought me on to find this weapon and stop it before it was used. And she doesn't say, but basically she fucked up. She was too late, and it's been used. And the handler says, do not seek blame, do not seek anger. And Starfleet is terminating the investigation. And Rafi is like, what? No, I'm so close. We got to find out what happened. I know it wasn't Toluco. That's just bullshit. They're feeding everybody. She's like, I need to keep doing this. I've got to find out what's really going on. And once again, the handler says, no, you are to disengage. Stop what you're doing. It's being handled. Just stop what you're doing. Blah, 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 blah. And Rafi demands that she be the one to do this. And when the handler says no, once again, disengage, she feels that she's owed an explanation. She feels that somebody owes it to her to bring her in on what's really going on. That's not how it works. If you're part of Starfleet intelligence, okay, you know that you're one cog in a much bigger machine, and you don't have top priority clearance to everything. Okay, if somebody says to stop working on what you're doing, you stop working on what you're doing. You have to assume that if there's something going on, they're going to take care of it. You're not the only person in the field. Okay? Maybe they don't want you to know what's going to happen. Jesus Christ, in case you get captured. Did you ever think of that, Rafi? Did you ever fucking think that they're not telling you what's going to happen, what their plans are, because you could be picked up, you could be tortured for your information. You don't just share with every spy the plans of everything going on. When you're ordered to stop fucking doing something, you stop fucking doing it. But of course, Rafi could never fucking do that, because she's a shitty character written by shitty writers that make us feel like she's right. They're going to want to make us feel like she was always right from the beginning. She was right to force her hand and, go above and disobey orders, because of course she's going to be. But in the real world, she should have just sat back and let someone else deal with it and wait till she be briefed on a future mission. So then, yeah, she tells her handler that, F you, I'm going rogue. I'm gonna handle this on my own. Then we're back on the Titan, and Shaw and Seven are talking, and Seven says that they detected weapon activity against an unarmed shuttle. So the Titan, which isn't all that far away, three torpedoes that destroyed the shuttle, it just comes back as weapons activity against the shuttle. And Shaw asked Seven flat out if she helped them get to the shuttlecraft that they stole. And she lies. She lies. She's like, I'm sure they were capable of getting to the shuttle themselves. You fucking ass. You know, just admit it at this point. She just lies. She lies and she gets away with it. And that angers me. So you would think, so Captain Shaw is 100% dead set against helping Riker and Picard. He's like, well, listen, these two people, they brought it upon themselves. They're outside Federation space. I'm a captain. My duty is to this ship and the lives of the people aboard this ship. And there is no way we're going to go out and on a limb to help these two criminals who put their lives in danger by doing all this. They knew they were doing wrong. He's basically sorry it happened, but I'm not going to risk my ship to save them. And Seven says, well, you can either be a hero that saved heroes, or you could be the captain that let two legends die. And with that, one line, it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. Seven completely changes Shaw's mind from letting Riker and Picard die to bringing the Titan right into the battle and saving their asses. So back on the Helios, Riker asks if they were hailed. Did he ever think of surrendering? But of course, the comm system is down. Picard starts putting things on the wall, which I recognized as transport inhibitors. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? And Picard's like, oh, I'm just taking precautions. And Jack is like, precautions against what? And just as he says that, he starts to get beamed away. And then Picard turns on the third transport inhibitor in the middle of his being beamed out. And of course, he magically rematerializes back on the bridge of the Helios. And he says, I was protecting against just that. And he says, well, at least we know now what it is they want. They want you. And so, yeah, the only person they were beaming off was Jack. So we know that they want Jack, and they seemingly want him alive, because if they wanted to kill him, they would have already. They could have destroyed the ship a dozen times over. They could have just, I assume they had to release the transporter lock. Had they kept trying to transport him with the transport inhibitors engaged, they probably would have killed him that way too. So they clearly want Jack alive. So once they realize they can't get Jack by beaming him off, two more bad guys beam onto the ship. Now they can't beam into the bridge because of the transport inhibitors, so they beam back to the far side of the ship. So it looks like, like where Beverly had to shoot them the first time, where Beverly alone killed the two guys. So they beam on two more guys. And this time, rather than taking out a jack-off gun to shoot them, Riker says, hey, just throw me one of those plasma grenades, or plasma charges. So apparently Beverly didn't think to use a plasma grenade, because Riker just tosses the plasma grenade, and in 2 seconds, both people are dead instantly killed. They don't even get a chance to get off their 100 shots. Riker doesn't have to fire a phaser. He could have just thrown a grenade. So Beverly, why, if you were such a well-trained militant at this point. Why didn't you just throw a grenade? Whatever, doesn't matter. So two more bodies to add to the body count. Fine. Riker, is not so good at shooting. He admitted anyway. So it was easy kills. Easy kills. So then Picard says, well, now hopefully they know sending their forces here is sending them to their death. Right, because the bad guys, they're always worried about how many bad henchmen they lose. And it's like, and now we know they want you alive. Yeah, well, we knew they wanted him alive by the fact that they hadn't blown up the ship. Okay. So then when they can't, after beaming people aboard fails, then the alien ship uses a tractor beam and just tractors the Helios in. And Picard's like, if they can't get us, if they can't bring us to them, they can't bring you to them, they're going to bring us to them. And I'll be honest, the tractor beam visual was kind of cool. It was not your usual Federation tractor beam. It was this greeny, gassy, lasery type thing. And Riker starts, so they're in a tractor beam, and Riker's like, I can improvise a repulsor beam, and everybody's running around with like their heads cut off, chickens with their heads cut off, and Jack yells, stop! And it was kind of weird, out of character, and he says, stop, they don't have a repulsor beam, it's useless. And Riker just said he was going to improvise one. Of course you don't have a repulsor beam. He was going to improvise one, but for whatever reason, Riker stops trying to do that. He says, it's pointless. They have us. Surrender, says Jack. We might as well surrender. So clearly Jack is indeed at least partially French. Anyway, just when they were going to be sucked in to the Vadic ship, the Titan jumps in and physically breaks the tractor beam. The saucer section of the Titan gets between Vadic ship and the Helios, so the Helios kind of physically breaks away. And on the Titan, they're saying they scan that there's not just 2 life signs aboard the Helios, there's 4 life signs. So Shaw says, I'll just beam them all on board. We're basically a hotel now. And then, of course, they're like, we can't lock on. Meanwhile, time is of the absolute essence because Vadic ship is getting ready to fire, or at least we're made to believe that it is. And so you're like, oh shit, they can't beam out. What's going on? And I'm like, oh shit, Picard set up transport inhibitors. And they seem to have forgot that he set up transport inhibitors. And they're waiting around wondering why they're not being beamed out. And then they find like, oh shit, the transport inhibitors. So does Picard just turn them off? No, he's got to dramatically shoot them down with perfect aim. 1, 2, 3. He shoots 3 shots, 3 transport inhibitors. They're taken out. And then they beam over. And when they materialize in the Titan's transporter bay, there's only 3 of them. There's only Riker, Picard, and Jack. The entire part of saving Beverly, who is in the stasis chamber, nobody asks, where's Beverly? We only see this for a few seconds before they cut to commercial, even though I don't have commercials. But they beam into the Titan, and they're all holding phasers, and the Titan's crew's got phasers pointed at them. So like Picard is like, okay, put the phasers down, Jack. And nobody asks, where's Beverly? Do you have Beverly? No, just ignored. I mean, that was what I wanted to know, is where's Beverly? We'll find out later that, of course, they beamed her directly to sick bay because they knew enough to do that, but nobody asked. I don't know how you don't ask. So yeah, Picard shoots out the transport inhibitors. So then we go back to Matalas Prime, I assume. Rafi is back on the planet. She's back in what appears to be District 6, the drug-infested ghetto district. And look who happens to be on the planet. Rafi's old husband, whose name is Jay, but not spelt Jayjae, because why not? So Rafi's old husband, her baby daddy, Jay, is there, happens to be a bar owner on Matalas Prime. You know, I was thinking a bit about Matalas Prime and the conceit of Mr. Matalas to name a planet after him. I thought maybe, you know what, would I do the same thing if I had a chance to write one season of Star Trek? Would I name a planet after myself? I might, you know, or I might name it Karoga, you know, something after myself. But that would be if I honestly thought this would be the last season of Star Trek I'd ever get a chance to write. And I'm starting to think Terry Matalas thought that. Like, I really think that maybe he's shocked that so many people have started calling this a return to Trek, because it clearly isn't. It so clearly isn't. If I was Terry Matalas and I was writing and I had to name a new planet, I'm sorry. I might name it after a great Trek actor who has passed. You know, you got DeForest Kelley, James Doohan, Leonard Nimoy, or hell, Nichelle Nichols, who recently passed. What if this was Nichols Prime? I'm just saying. You know, anybody but yourself. Name the planet after anybody but yourself. Aaron Eisenberg, Renee Auberjonois. There are, unfortunately, many candidates to have a planet named after them. So Rafi's talking to her husband, her ex-husband, and the ex-husband is talking about the son and says, Gabe says you ambushed him at his baby's doctor. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, why would they be bringing that up? That was 2 years ago. That was season 1 of Picard. And now I realize, oh shit, she did it again. It's not that they're talking about something 2 years ago where she did ambush her son. At that time, though, the baby wasn't born yet. The wife was still pregnant, and she ambushed them at the it wasn't technically the baby's doctor, it was the wife's doctor. So now she graduated to actually going to the kid's doctor, and she says, I just wanted to see her. Rafi's old MO. Go to the doctor's office. So then Rafi goes on about, hey, I'm with Starfleet. I'm back. I'm clean. I cleaned myself up. I'm with Starfleet. And she goes, I'm with Starfleet Intelligence. So she's like basically just telling everybody again in a wide open public place that she's a spy. And her ex-husband is like, you sure you ain't using again? Because you know, you're an addict. And apparently he was too, but he really did clean himself up, because he had this wonderful son, and that was enough to keep him clean. So Rafi's like, listen, I need you to make, I know you still have a bar, and I know you turn a blind eye to the stuff that goes on in the back room. And I really need you to introduce me to this Ferengi named Sneed. And the husband's taken aback. He's like, Sneed is he's a broker, which is just a nice word for a gangster. These are terrible people. He's like, I thought you were here because you wanted to see your son again. I thought you wanted me to put in a good word with your son. And Rafi's like, oh, well, would you do that for me? And I like the husband, the ex-husband. He's like, you know what, Rafi, I can either put in an introduction for you with Sneed, or I could put in a good word with you and your son. But I'm only going to do one, not both. You make your decision now. And Rafi chose poorly. She again forgoes on her son to chase something that she's been ordered not to chase. She could easily sit back and say, someone else is taking care of this. I'm going to try to repair my relations with my son so I can see my granddaughter like a normal human being and not have to look at videos that they posted on future TikTok and not have to go to their doctor's visits to see them. But no, she decides to take the appointment with Sneed instead. We're back on the Titan. Seven does a status report, and that's where we get confirmation that the injured civilian, who is Dr. Crusher, I guess she's just civilian now, beamed directly to sickbay. She was unconscious but stable, and at this point, after they just beamed everybody over, Seven suggests that we go to Worf right away and get the fuck out of there, which would be the smart thing to do. But right there, Shaw decides to grow a pair of balls for some reason and says, no, I want to know who we've engaged with and why. And, he wants them on screen, but before he can say, open a channel, they get the hail. They get a hail. And I'll be honest, it's Amanda Plummer, and she looks good as a villain. And for a second there, I thought, holy shit, this might get real. This might get real. And she says, good afternoon. I'm like, what? Good afternoon. And then she's like, I believe it's afternoon in the soul system. And my brain breaks. My fucking brain breaks. You're a captain of a starship. You don't say good afternoon. That's not how you greet people in space. And then to top it off, to say, oh, I think it's afternoon in the soul system. What the fuck does that even mean? No, it's afternoon in the soul system? The entire fucking solar system? It's afternoon? Not even fucking planet Earth? You know how planets work, right? You know how time zones work. It's afternoon. No, it's not afternoon on Earth. It's not afternoon on Titan, on Saturn, on Mars, the whole fucking system, Pluto. No, I'm sorry. What is she fucking playing? I think she's playing somebody who's mentally challenged. And nobody like says, what the fuck type of special idiot do you have to be to say, I think it's afternoon in an entire fucking solar system? It's not even afternoon on Earth. It's constantly afternoon somewhere. Maybe not over the Pacific Ocean but even the Pacific Ocean has islands. It's afternoon somewhere. It's also midnight somewhere. It's dawn somewhere. It's middle of the day. It's good morning. It makes no fucking sense. Oh my God. And the thing is, other than this line that I can't fucking get past, if you had cut that line, Amanda Plummer does an excellent fucking job. I'll be honest, she is a high point of this fucking episode. But that line took me out of it. It took me out of it, and it took me quite a while to get reinvested after just... I mean, it takes a special type of stupid to write that type of fucking line. So anyway, Vadic, she introduces herself. I'm Captain Vadic. And she knows somehow right away. Well, not right away. She takes like 5 seconds. And she's like, you are Captain Liam Shaw. And she goes on. She's like, yeah, based on, Captain Shaw is like, I want you to know up until just now, I was having a pretty good day. And she says, oh, after seeing his Starfleet psychological profile or something, she's surprised and happy he's still functional, which then kind of shuts up Shaw. So something's going on there. We don't get the full story, but from that moment on, Shaw's personality, he gets knocked down a few pegs. And then she sees, oh, and then Captain Picard or Admiral Picard says something. And she's like, Admiral Jean-Luc Picard in the synthetic flesh. She's the first person that I can think of since I don't know when to actually bring up the fact that he's not the real Captain Picard anymore. He's a synthetic. He's a synth, but fine. And then she goes on to say, you guys are harboring Jack Crusher. There's a sizable bounty on his head. So basically she goes on to say that she's a bounty hunter and that Jack Crusher has a bounty on his head, and that's what they want. They want him. And honestly, it sounds almost, reasonable. Vadic gives them, she always makes, these are what bad guys always make that mistake. I give you an hour. And why do you need an hour? Why do they need an hour? Just a chance to give them a plan, to come up with something. If she gave him 15 minutes or 5 minutes, or I want him right now, this would have gone differently. But of course, she gives them an hour. And then, just to show she's serious, she tractors the Helios and throws it at the Titan. And the Helios scrapes up against the saucer section of the Helios. The Helios, they yell, shields up, evasive maneuvers, but the Helios crashes into the saucer section of the Titan, scrapes all along the saucer section, and then flies. And then Captain Shore is like, what the hell just happened? And LaForge, the person at the con, I don't know why she would be the one to even answer this, but LaForge's like, she threw a ship at us, sir. And like, you think you think the Titan's been seriously damaged. I mean, 7 says it broke through the shields. It tore a hole on deck 11. The captain asks, how is that even possible? Well, they threw a ship at you. But then when when the captain asks, how is that even possible? I'm thinking, well, she tractor beamed it into you. It doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility. It's weird, but I don't see why it's impossible. And LaForge says it was a reverse tractor beam, yada, yada, yada. And then she says this ridiculous line: if my father taught me anything, there is no law of physics that can't be either weaponized or broken by another law of physics. Even Bob O'Prey I hear Bob O'Prey laughing under her breath at that one. This is third grade writing, except that frankly, my third grade could write better than this. I mean, it sounds like it's something. I bet idiots think that that's profound. But that doesn't fucking mean anything can be weaponized, right? You could drown somebody with a glass of water if you hold it over their mouth. That it doesn't fucking mean anything. And I don't agree that laws of physics can be broken by other laws of physics. That just sounds like, well, that'll make us sound smart. It doesn't make you sound smart to smart people, though. It only makes you sound smart to idiots. But maybe that's all you're going for. There are more idiots out there. Anyway, Shaw says we have 500 guns pointed at us. It's impossible to run. And the second the nacelles light up, meaning the second they go to warp, they're going to be hit. And he says when the second the nacelles light up, help is days away, which confirms what I was saying last week, that it took days, if not weeks, for the Titan to reach this part. Okay? If the nearest help is days away, how long was the Titan flying? It couldn't have just been overnight. I mean, literally, we're to expect that the Titan went from Earth, from space dock in Earth orbit, to this thing in the 8 hours or so, let's say, that Captain Shore was asleep. Bullshit. Okay? It doesn't make any sense. They would have had to have been at high warp for days and days. And this isn't to Earth. This is just to the nearest Federation ship, being days away. Okay. So Shore is like, well, what do we know about this Vadic? And of course, there's nothing in the Federation data banks about Vadic. But 7 is like, well, this ship, there's been rumors of the ship among the Fenris Rangers, a very powerful ship that has all the weapons Starfleet has, and then some. Vadic, she says, yeah, I'll take my shields down so you can scan my ship so you know what you're dealing with. And there was dozens of photon torpedoes, maybe hundreds of photon torpedoes, plasma torpedoes, all different types of weapons I've never heard of, but they each one sounded worse than the next. And then there was some type of weapon that they didn't even know what technology it was, but they were pretty sure it was a weapon, and it was in their main bay. So that's either the weapon that they used to destroy the building, or my guess, possibly the fabled photonic cannon that the doctor from Voyager used as a bluff in Star Trek Voyager. Maybe because there's photonic energy on that ship, maybe they actually have a photonic cannon. Either way, we'll see. So Seven's like, well, she's known to the Fenris Rangers, and of course, Captain Shaw doesn't like hearing that she's basically just a rumor that the Fenris Rangers know. Like, well, what do we know about Jack Crusher? Who is he? And then they get a report. He's basically known as a whole bunch of fake names, all that start with J and end with C. And it turns out he's basically a con man. Captain Shaw tells Picard that he's a con man, he's a criminal, and the bounty hunter claims are valid. He does say he's an intergalactic fugitive, which again, no, he's not intergalactic. Intergalactic means that he's wanted in multiple galaxies. He would be intragalactic, but it's not the first time Star Trek has made that mistake, but it does annoy me each time they do. Then Shaw blames Seven for persuading him to engage with the ship, even though Seven did initially persuade him to do this when she told him, listen, you're either going to be a hero that saved two legends, a hero that saved two heroes, or the captain that let two legends die. But now he's blaming Seven for persuading him to engage with the ship, even though Seven clearly said her suggestion was to warp away when they could. And had he warped out, they would probably be okay, or maybe they'd be being chased, but, he might have a chance of being faster than the alien ship. We don't know. But Shaw says, it's your fault for wagering 500 lives over the total of 2. So Shaw's all ready to hand him over. Riker says the man's wanted for trial, not execution. And he says, that's not a ship, it's a guillotine. And I'm thinking, no, it is a ship. Because they've demonstrated if they wanted him dead, they would have killed him now 5, 6, 7 times over. They are purposely wanting Jack Crusher alive. I really don't know for what reason. I highly doubt that it's really about a bounty. I agree. But they want him alive, not dead. If they handed him over and they just kill him, then why go through all this? They could have just blown up the ship to begin with. They clearly want him alive. So Picard begs to speak with Jack, and Captain Shaw says, well, listen, she gave us an hour, so you have half that. So Shaw lets Picard go talk to Jack, and on his way to go talking to Jack, Riker and Picard are talking, and Riker keeps bringing up, he's like, basically Riker's saying, he's clearly your son. How do you not notice that? Do the math. Do you not see? Riker's like, do you not see what I see? I mean, he's clearly your son. He doesn't say that, but they're beating around the bush. And it's just, I don't know, it's just like a 5-minute scene just full of cringe. Like, honestly, Riker and Picard, most of their scenes had been pretty decent. Like, even relatively good, I'd say, up till this point. But for some reason, this scene, Riker just seems out of it. This is like his worst acted scene in all of the Picard series so far. I something was off. I don't know what. Anyway, Picard goes to see Shaw, who's in the brig. By the way, they put him in the brig when they realized that he was a criminal, and Picard's reading out the list of charges that he's charged with: organized crime and on Andoria, actual terrorism on Binar 3, and I assume Binar 3 is the planet that the Binars from the Next Generation episode 10100, whatever the fuck it was, were from. The aliens that's tried to steal the Enterprise, or did steal the Enterprise, because they needed a computer to run their civilization while they rebooted their mainframe. And something to do, some crime on Andreas 5, which is not in Memory Alpha. And so Picard's like, so basically you're a criminal. And, he's like, Beverly would never put up with anything like this. And then, of course, Chekhov says, what do you mean? Who do you think taught me this? And Picard's like, there's no way. And he's like, what do you mean there's no way? He's like, how long has it been since you've spoken to her? Is anybody really the same that they were 20 years ago? And like Picard is taken aback, and he's like, I only got 18 minutes to decide what to do with you. And I'm thinking, when did it become Picard's decision? Like, Shaw's not giving up control to Picard. Last thing we heard from Shaw was Picard's a retired admiral with no real authority. But whatever. So then we go back to Rafi's story, and she's walking through the seedy part of town, literally knocking into drug dealers again. And so I guess she gets to her ex-husband's bar, and there's a back room, and there's a security guard, and he doesn't let her in. And Rafi's like, how do you sell drugs if you turn away junkies? Because she's undercover as a junkie, which is very easy for her to pretend to be. And the guard is like, we don't take strangers. So Rafi says, well, no, she's here to see Sneed, and that he's expecting her. So, of course, he lets her right in. So Rafi comes in, and Sneed is a Ferengi, and despite having a couple of like tattoos or something on his not his lobes, on his forehead, he pretty much looks like a Ferengi. I would believe it. And honestly, he acts like a Ferengi for the most part. I mean, like a DS9 Ferengi, not a TNG Ferengi. You can understand what he speaks. You can understand he's not like hissing and shit. He doesn't have a fucking phaser whip. He does have a perchant for human things. He introduces himself. He says he likes retro things, human things. And there's a baseball. And I was like, because when you see a baseball, you think of the far superior Deep Space Nine, Captain Sisko. Anyway, Sneed says if anything gets old enough, eventually it becomes vintage and of value. And immediately I thought to myself, not anything, because I can assure you Star Trek Discovery is never going to become vintage or of value. But whatever. And he gives her a soft drink, like a glass. Like, I almost thought it was like, oh, is he giving her like a Coca-Cola glass bottle of Coke? We don't actually get to see what it was, but it looked a bit more greenish than cola colored. So then I wonder if that's the famed Sluggo Cola from Deep Space Nine Ferengi episodes, but we never get to see the label. Anyway, Sneed says You smell like Starfleet Federation. He says, Section 31. And I cringed because, of course, why would he know Section 31? Fine. So I in my head, I was like, he should have said, you smelled like Federation, like Starfleet Federation. And he should have said root beer. I thought that would have been great. Terry, that would have been a great callback to Deep Space Nine. But anyway, he says, you smell like Section 31. He's like, unless you can convince me you're not Section 31 or Starfleet by, here, do these drugs. So if she does the drugs, that'll prove to him that she's really, someone that's looking for information that doesn't work for Starfleet, because obviously Starfleet would never take drugs. She says she doesn't work for Starfleet. She works for Toluco. So take these drugs. And she does. She takes the drugs and she's fighting them, but he's like, it's a hard drug to fight. He's like, you must have been a really strong addict to be able to fight these drugs, because she's still assisting. She works for Toluco. And the Ferengi's like, well, I happen to know you don't work for Toluco and he brings out Toluco's head. It was sitting there, like right behind him. He's like, because this is Toluco right here. And he shows her Toluco's head in his hands. And he's about to have her killed. And he's like, I'll take your money. By the way, she paid him with these, I assume were jewels. She puts them on the table. He's like, I'll take your money, and he's like, and these guys will take your head. So there's 3 bodyguards in the room with him. So Rafi, who's already high as fuck on this drug, can barely stand up as Sneed goes to collect the jewels that are on the table. Rafi pulls a knife from somewhere and stabs Sneed through the hand. And he's like, and he's stuck to the table. Anyway, just as that happens, Rafi falls to the floor. She's about to be killed. And enter, dun dun dun, Worf. Worf comes in. And he kills the first guard. And he kills the second guard. And he kills the third guard. And then he kills the Ferengi who was unarmed and stuck to the table. He kills the Ferengi, not just kills him, decapitates the Ferengi with his 25% different mek'leth. It's not a mek'leth, it's some other new Klingon sword, but it's a lot like a mek'leth, which is like a half-length batleth. We don't even get a good batleth kill. It's a mek'leth kill, but it's not a mek'leth. Anyway, decapitates. Worf fucking decapitates a Ferengi who wasn't even fucking armed. Right on camera. Right on camera. The head falls off the fucking body. And then he picks up Rafi, who's fucking out of it, and he says, I told you not to engage. Basically confirming for us that indeed, yes, Worf was his Starfleet intelligence contact. Welcome back, Worf. You've betrayed your character. So then we go to the Titan again. And guess what? It's a beautiful shot of the Titan. No damage. No damage. The fucking Helios had exploded across its saucer section. And now there's not even a scratch. Not even a scratch on the Titan. I mean, Seven said that it tore a hole in Deck 11. I don't know where Deck 11 is, but it's obviously either been completely repaired in 5 minutes, or they just decided it was too much work to show damage on a computer-generated model. So Captain Shaw is saying, how do we even know that Jack Crusher is Beverly's son? Well, you know what you do have? You have a fucking starship. Why don't you just scan him and scan Beverly? And while you're at it, scan Jean-Luc too. And I'm sure you can tell in about 15 seconds if he's her son and if he's Picard's son. You could answer all these questions, but no, nobody's going to do it the easy way. Nobody's going to do it the easy way. They have 15 minutes to figure out what to do. Jack, by the way, at this point is alone with just one guard in the brig. And Jack, for some reason, in the brig, nobody searched him for technology or weapons or anything. So Jack decides, hey, he gets the security guard's attention. He says, hey, you're required to give me the power level of this field. Like, what the fuck? He's like, yeah, Starfleet requires you to tell me the power level of this field in case I were to get injured trying to escape. And of course, apparently that is a real regulation because the guy tells him it's power level 10. And of course, just for the fun of it, he walks over, puts his face right up to the shield to say it to him. He's like, it's power level 10. Go ahead, try to touch it. I dare you. And Jack, wearing some piece of tech on his wrist, turns a dial and shuts off the power, the force field. And of course, like, headbutts the guy and knocks him out. And Jack runs out. They put him in a brig. They don't search him for tech. It's right on his arm. They don't even do a scan. You know what? He deserves to get away at that point. And I don't even feel bad that the guy got headbutt, because if you had just stayed at your post and not walked up to the shield, he wouldn't have been able to. He could have got out of the cage, but you would have had time to shoot him with a phaser before he got to you. Anyway, it turns out he's headed to the transporter room, but they don't know that yet. So then Shaw is like, listen, you guys got like 15 minutes, and then I'm giving this kid back. But Shaw also is like, I don't even trust that he's her son. So instead of doing a scan to confirm that he is indeed Beverly's son, and you might as well also confirm he's Picard's son at the same time, Riker instead goes to sickbay, asks the doctor how Beverly is, and they're like, well, they just repaired major arterial damage. And Riker says, is she medicated? Is she awake? And the doctor's like, oh no, she is heavily medicated. Well, instead of like saying, oh shit, let's scan her anyway, let's just scan her non-invasively, Riker picks up some type of hypospray and injects Beverly. Since when is Riker a doctor? And how did he even know what the fuck he was injecting her with? And how did the doctor not stop him from doing that? No, he injects her, even though it could kill her. He injects her, and they end the scene. So Seven, who had been relieved of duty once Captain Shaw put the ship on lockdown because the guy escaped the brig, Seven just came back on duty, and Seven of course, knew he was going to the transporter room because magic, and Seven calls Captain Shaw and says, I found him. I found Jack. He's in the transporter room. And so Captain Shaw's like, oh, you just earned yourself back out of course you did. You just earned yourself back to your position. And basically he has a phaser, and Captain Picard's like, don't you see? He's not trying to escape. If he was trying to escape, he would have gone to the shuttles. The only place he can transport is to the other ship. And then Captain Shaw is like, he wants to turn himself over? Well, let's just let him. Let him go. And then we get that there's 1 minute to go. And just as Captain Shaw is ready to order the transporter to beam him over, Beverly Crusher walks onto the bridge, awake, and Riker has to hold her up, but she's awake, and Picard looks at her, she looks at Picard, and without any words being exchanged, Picard knows now it is indeed his son. And somehow Picard just takes charge, and Captain Shaw doesn't stop him. Picard says, belay that order. Admiral's orders. Shaw had just ordered he be beamed over. So he says, Admiral orders, belay that. And Shaw looks at him, and instead of saying, you have no authority to belay my order, you're retired Admiral. Get the fuck out of here, old man. Shaw says, you're going to get us killed. Why are you doing this? And Admiral Picard says, because he's my son. And then Captain Shaw gives a, God damn it. And then Vadic comes up on screen and says, so what's your answer? And Picard says, engage. And the Titan fires 3 torpedoes at this heavily armed ship that had 500 guns pointed at them that we were told could destroy the Titan before the Titan even went to warp. Picard fires 3 torpedoes at Vadic's ship, which, by the way, it's called the Shrike, which is apparently some type of bird that I honestly I've never heard of, but apparently it's a bird on Earth. Mama Pray, you ever heard of a shrike? I haven't either. Anyway, so it's the Shrike. Takes 3 torpedoes. Of course, their shields are up. The torpedoes don't do any apparent damage. And Vadic is laughing. She doesn't shoot back. She doesn't shoot back. She just says, follow him. And the ship, the Titan, goes into the nebula and disappears. There's always a nebula around when you need one, apparently. So it goes into the nebula, disappears, and Vadic, who has dozens and dozens of weapons at her disposal, rather than attacking the Titan like she said she could, like we were all led to believe she would, literally just laughs her ass off and orders her ship to follow the Titan. And so the Titan disappears into the nebula, and then the Shrike disappears into the nebula. And we're basically at Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, where the Reliant follows the Enterprise into the Matari, whatever, into the nebula. End of episode. Okay. I'll be honest. When this episode ended, I didn't feel like I had all that much to talk about. Like, very little felt like it happened. We got the introduction of Worf, We found out Rafi's husband owned a bar on Matalas Prime, apparently. Like everything Rafi's doing appears to be on Matalas Prime. We got what we knew already. We all knew that was Picard's son, so that really wasn't new. Beverly's awake, and Admiral Picard has somehow gotten control of the Titan now. That was basically it. Overall, the writing for this episode was poor. I mean, it just wasn't that good. The ridiculousness of it being afternoon and in an entire solar system, taking 3 photon torpedoes to destroy one shuttle, and disease that somehow kills at the rate of so many people per minute, not per person infected. I mean, just so many writing issues. This was not as good as the first episode. The first episode I gave an 8. And it had, don't get me wrong, it had a lot of problems. Okay, it's still Dark Trek. It is not a return to TNG. It's not a return to Trek as we knew it. And this even less so, this episode. Like this episode, I thought it was going to be better. I think it's worse. Don't get me wrong, Amanda Plummer, I think she steals the show. Except for that one very stupid line. She's engaging. She's engaging. No pun intended. The title of this episode is Disengage. But Amanda Plummer, she's a strong one. The Ferengi Sneed, he was done well. Oh my God, my man Worf, so sad. How do you judge that? I think Michael Dorn has let Worf become soiled by the name of New Trek. When would Worf have decapitated an unarmed man? Jesus Christ. In Deep Space Nine, Quark lays down his weapon and he kneels before the Klingon, and the Klingon was going to decapitate him with his bat'leth, and Gowron stands up and says no. He's like, there's no honor in this. I didn't want to believe what he was saying about you was true. But if you would kill this honorless whatever, Patak, then you really have no honor. If Worf kills an honorless Ferengi in this episode, the first episode we see him in 20 years, and he's killing a unarmed Ferengi. Decapitation, nonetheless. Oh my God, it just reminds me of season 1 of Picard, where Elnor decapitated the fucking Romulan. At least that Romulan had a sword. They were going into battle. And I know this Ferengi was a bad guy. I'm sure he wouldn't think twice about killing someone to save his ass. But at the time, he was unarmed and incapacitated. That's not Worf. That's not Worf. So I don't care how good Amanda Plummer was. I don't care how well Sneed was done. This episode was a 6 at best. At best. And if you got nothing else to do and you already have a subscription and you want to watch it, obviously it's fine with me. I did. I'm not in a position to tell anybody not to. But if you're there looking for TNG or that Star Trek that used to make you feel good, that used to make you feel there was hope for the future, optimism, it's not here. And I'm pretty sure after today, it's never going to be here. Not in Picard season 3. I'm sorry. I wish it was different, but it's not. 6 of 10. Bird out.